Hello, everyone. Welcome along to the Debrief. We are live on the Blood Red YouTube channel after finally catching our breath back after that stunning Liverpool comeback victory. An absolutely stunning, shocking, almost unbelievable result. The 10 men, of course, being pulled through by Darwin Nunez's brace. We join me, Patrick Smith, and I'm joined by Liverpool.com's Matt Addison. Matt, how are things? And give us your thoughts on that one, because bloody hell, that was crazy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's one of those games that you just enjoy covering, don't you? You've got to frantically hammer away at the keyboard whilst keeping an eye on things. And Darwin Nunez has just sort of lit up the game, hasn't he? I think it could be a massive moment for him. I think we've been waiting really for this kind of performance from him. He's obviously not been starting matches at the start of this season, but he needed to take his opportunity really, and he's done that. I think Liverpool deserve credit for hanging on. I'm sure we'll discuss the red card and one or two other bits, but I think you can tell there's a bit of needle between Newcastle and Liverpool, and they've come up on top again. It's not the first time where they've had to do that late on, or they've had to do it in a difficult circumstance. But I think, for me, Liverpool have a better team than Newcastle. Newcastle obviously make it look very, very different with the extra man and pushing Liverpool back. But I think you can just tell really the difference between these two teams is Liverpool have got that quality in the final third that they showed, and Newcastle did well to a certain point, but didn't manage to get themselves 2-0 up. And I think that's the big thing, isn't it? If Liverpool were only a goal down with 10 minutes left, you thought maybe they could snatch a draw. In the end, they've obviously gone on and got even more than that. But yeah, they deserve loads of credit. Darwin Nunez, I'm sure, will be on all of the back pages tomorrow, and rightly so. And hopefully that can be the start of something for him, because I think he is a bit of a confidence player. And if you can't get confidence from scoring two brilliant goals like that, then I don't know what you can get it from.
Yeah, spot on. I mean, it's also the depth of quality, I think, as well. Liverpool's substitutions who came on quite literally changed the game. Quality players, you say, Nunez has that in his locker, whereas Newcastle substitutions maybe didn't. I think that's when they obviously started to suffer in the game. But let's start with the bad side, Max. Obviously, there's so much good to talk about in the second half. But let's talk about the first half, because, I was expecting to do a pretty downbeat debrief. I think we were going to be more ranting than celebrating it. It's strange to be in this situation now. But let's start the show with Liverpool's opening 20 minutes, because it was unbelievably sloppy, wasn't it? I mean, this is a sign that's cropping up so far this season. We saw it at times last season. What do Liverpool need to do to stop having these really sluggish starts?
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? I mean, we saw it plenty of times last season. It was a familiar problem. We've seen it now twice in a row with Trent has lost the ball or miscontrolled it, whatever. Today, obviously lost the ball last week for Bournemouth's goal. It's very, very strange, isn't it? I don't know quite what the reasoning for that is, but it's almost like they need that bit of a wake-up call. Last week, they got the goal and they came from behind to win. They've done the same again today, so you can't really complain. But at some point, they are going to have to start switching on a little bit. But, I mean, I don't think the referee helped, to be honest. I think the crowd obviously is going to be up. Liverpool didn't particularly deal with that very well. I think that a few defenders and possibly the match official as well maybe got a bit caught up and a bit swept up in the occasion early on. And I think it's a hard one. It's an explanation, but it's not an excuse, because when you go to Newcastle and it's 4:30 on a Sunday, you know that that's going to be the case. It's a big game for them. It's an opportunity for them to put one over a team that they're trying to prove that last season wasn't a one-off, and they are, ahead of Liverpool in the table last season. Liverpool have gone there and beaten them. This is a big opportunity for Newcastle to show what they can do, and Liverpool just didn't quite look switched on to begin with. They looked a lot better, weirdly, when they got down to 10 men. It kind of seemed to focus the minds a little bit. It means that they had to be a little bit more structured, and I'm sure, we'll have plenty more conversations this week now off the back of this around, Trent's role and the formation and all of that sort of thing. But they just obviously seemed to be a little bit better when they were more functional and more solid, and then they can, counter-attack, and they've got the quality to do that with the players in the attack, as we discussed before. So it's a problem. It's not a problem that's cost them yet, but it is a problem that they need to sort out. But I think for now, you've just got to focus on the positives, and hopefully, next week they can learn from it. And I'm sure even after the madness that followed, that won't be forgotten by the players. I'm sure that's something they'll be trying to work on. But in terms of trying to explain it, it's really hard, because we know how good they can be, and it shouldn't be a surprise that the game started quickly. Unfortunately, it looked like that was the case for Trent, and as I'm sure we'll come to, he was possibly a tiny bit lucky to still be on the pitch.
Yeah, we'll move on to the officiating shortly. But as you say, winning ugly isn't exactly a bad habit to have, is it? But it is quite concerning Liverpool keep having these sluggish starts. But yeah, hopefully they can iron those mistakes out. It is early in the season, of course, 7 points from the first 3 games, isn't a bad position to be in at all. Having played Chelsea, Newcastle away, if we look at it, retrospectively in that sense. But Matt, you are a qualified FA referee, so you're probably one of the best people we could possibly ask about this. Let's talk about the officiating. As I always say on the show, we don't like to talk about officials. We want to talk about the match itself, but you can't not today. It's almost like he was trying to steal the show. And if you want to talk us through both the decisions on Trent and, of course, the Van Dijk red card as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Trent one is the one really that kicks it all off. I think, firstly, it's a blatant push in the back and it should be a foul. And then he throws the ball away and gives himself a silly yellow card. So it's a poor decision from the official. Probably needs a little bit of help from either the assistant or the fourth official, I think was on that side of the pitch, wasn't it? So one of them maybe can see what he can't from his position. But, from that moment on, it's then silly from Trent to throw the ball away. But I just think he got a little bit swept up. He's an inexperienced referee, John Brooks. He's not done many Liverpool games. He's certainly not done many games of this magnitude. And it was, end to end and massively frantic. So I'm slightly surprised that it was him in the middle. I thought that when the appointments were made, Liverpool have already had Anthony Taylor this season, who is one of the 2 most experienced officials and is the UEFA official that seems to be most highly regarded, and Michael Oliver obviously can't be involved with Newcastle because he's a Newcastle fan. So it's tricky beyond that. I think that the standard of the referees is something that is much discussed, but it's a balance, isn't it? Because you've got to give these opportunities to people for them to learn. But I think maybe it was a little bit of a naive start from him as well as a few Liverpool defenders early on. So I think probably the second yellow decision probably comes because he realises that the first one is a little bit harsh and maybe he's got that one wrong. But from that point, I think that the crowd maybe get on his back a little bit. I think there's a couple of moments. There was a couple of times I thought where Newcastle players were leaving one on Dominic Szoboszlai, for example, and he was just letting it go a little bit. And, there's a few bits where...
Joelinton made 5 fouls in the first half and didn't get booked. It was bizarre, wasn't it?
It could have got... it could have got a little bit more out of control than what it did. But to be fair, I think Liverpool did well, actually, to kind of cool things down and just almost kill the game and not really give Newcastle too many opportunities. They didn't make loads themselves until the last 10 minutes when they start to go for it and get the rewards. But I think they did quite well in those circumstances. But yeah, with the other one, the Van Dijk one, I think it is a red card if it's a foul. The question for me is it a foul or not? I know there was some discussion on Sky with Jamie Carragher saying that it can't be an obvious goal scoring opportunity because we don't know what touch Isak was going to play. I mean, that just doesn't come into it at all. I think he was straight through on goal. It's definitely a red card if it's a foul. That the question really, I think, is whether Van Dijk plays the ball or not. I think there is an argument that he plays the man first, which is obviously what the referee has seen. And as soon as the referee has seen that, the VAR isn't going to overturn it. So I think it's probably a 50-50 one in terms of whether it gets given or not. But as soon as it's been given, it's going to stand. And, Virgil van Dijk wasn't particularly happy about it. But I think, last week, I think we pretty much knew as soon as it happened that was going to get overturned. That certainly isn't going to be the case with this one. I think the referee probably got it right. The frustration will be that there's probably 10 other tackles that you can pick out where the man and the ball were played that probably weren't given as fouls. Liverpool were just a little bit unfortunate. I think that the one that was ultimately ended up in the red card. So, yeah, frustrating one for him. He's a little bit unlucky, but I think as soon as he blows the whistle and gives a foul, I think we all know that it has to be a red card from that point.
No, that's the point. If it's a foul, it's a red card, and it's a definite red card for me. I mean, he's clearly just booted through Isak, and I think Van Dijk's reaction says it more embarrassment and panic rather than him actually not thinking he's, kicked Isak, which he effectively has. But the ref, as you say, was dreadful, and he just completely lost control. And I mean, the amount of fouls Newcastle were committing and not being booked for, their whole game plan turns. I mean, Gary Neville was saying on commentary that Newcastle play like Simeone's Atletico. Absolutely spot on comparison. It is basically a reincarnation of that. And they got to the point where they knew they could just foul every time Dominic Szoboszlai and McAllister got on the ball. I mean, every time Liverpool got the ball, were trying to turn out, they were just being fouled every time without being booked. It was unbelievable to see. But let's move on then, Matt, shall we, to the positives. Darwin Nunez came on. He had a great pre-season and great scoring form. We often play, one half at a time. And I can't remember, I think he had 5 goals or something in 4 matches, didn't he? And he's carried that form on into this season, clearly, by today's showing. Seems a lot more composed, really un-Nunez-like, actually, today, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's got those two chances and he's put them both away. Probably the second one happens because of the first one and that lift. And as I said at the start, hopefully this can be the start of something for him. I don't know. Maybe he'll be in the team from the start next week. It again might be a game where you look at it and think maybe he's better almost coming off the bench where there are a few more gaps that open up and maybe that sort of game suits him a little bit better. But we'll see what happens. I think it could be a big moment for him. It could be a turning point. And like you say, the two finishes are absolutely brilliant. I think it was really interesting that he linked up with Mohamed Salah as well. That was something I wrote about earlier in this week. I think there was a strong argument to play Nunez in this game. He played really well at Newcastle away last season as well and scored in that one. Obviously gets in behind because of the way that Newcastle play. But I think during pre-season we've seen it, the link up between him and Salah is just, really, really something to savour. And I think that's where the second goal comes from. I can't quite remember the play before the first one, but I assume Salah probably was involved in that one as well, because it seems to be that those two have got, a really, really good relationship. And yeah, it's one of those really where I think if Salah can become more of a creator and the goal scoring emphasis moves to somebody else, that's no bad thing for Liverpool. Salah will continue to get his goals. And in fact, I've just seen a replay of that first goal and it's Salah, not the assist, but the pass before that to turn it around the corner. So yeah really great link-up play, really, heavily involved from both of them. It's two almost identical, but two brilliant finishes from him. And, I think this is almost the role that Darwin Nunez won't like. He'll want to start matches, but I think if you've got a player who you can bring on and that you're going to create chances for him, I think if he can be this clinical, he could be, a bit of a super sub option for Liverpool. I don't think he's ever going to be as good as Gakpo or Jota in terms of the link-up play. But if you've got someone who just gets in the box and puts the ball in the back of the net, I mean, it's a great weapon to have, particularly in a game like this, but I think in any game as well. Generally speaking, the last 10 minutes are the ones where the gaps will start to open up and teams will be a little bit tired. And if you've got Darwin Nunez coming on in a confident mood, then it's not something that you want as a defender.
No, he's 100% the man you bring on in that scenario, isn't he? And I agree with you. I don't think he'd work necessarily in the classic 4-3-3 or the new 3-2-5 they've adopted. It doesn't really suit him with the link-up play. But, if you can just basically make Nunez isolated and just feed him chances, he will put them away, as today proved. And yet, unbelievable performance from Liverpool. As you said before, they did so well not to bite after going down to 10 men, tough crowd, poor refereeing, the composure and the professionalism they showed. I don't think we can underrate this performance. I think it's really, really up there with one of the best wins I've seen from Liverpool in a long time. Really gutsy. Good for Liverpool. Great for them. Amazing result. 7 points from 3 games. We'll wrap up the show there, Matt. I'll let you get on with your match reports because you've probably got a lot of work to do after that one. A lot of deleting and retyping, I imagine. But everyone, if you're watching us here on the Blood Red channel, make sure you stick around. We'll bring you Jurgen Klopp's press conference reaction as soon as we get it. That'll definitely be an interesting one to watch. And of course, the post-game podcast will be on a platform you get your podcasts from, be it Spotify, Apple Podcast, etc. But yeah, for myself, Patrick Smith, and Matt Addison, thank you for tuning in with us on the Debrief, and we'll catch you again soon.